Hey, welcome everybody. Happy New Year for those of you celebrating the New Year right now. Woo! I'm not a big New Year's person, so this is as good as it gets. Woo! Congratulations. And to those of you about to celebrate one, wow. Boy, do you ever have something to look forward to. It's Gabe from the future or the past, depending on how you perceive everything, I guess. God, that is kind of a strange thing to think about, thinking about time zones. If you're from the future, you're talking to the past because some people haven't experienced a new year yet and others have. And so you're like, where does this fall within timeline things? Hmm. An interesting thing to do with timelines. Thought we should do some experimentation with timelines tonight, right after midnight. So, anyways, welcome to the live stream. Anybody who decides to join, I don't know. I had a strange intuition. You can hear also the fireworks are going off in the background. A lot of people like to hear a lot of things go around here. So, yeah, a lot of that going on. So, yeah, hoorah. Congratulations, everybody. Time has passed once again, and it's time for you to go everywhere. It is pretty cool when you can actually see the light show. Um, I'm not in the spot where I can actually see the light show at this point, but hmm. Um, so yeah. Anyways, happy New Year. So it was kind of a strange one. It was kind of like, anyways, this year has been strange. It's been a very, very bizarre year. And it all really made a lot of sense to me lately. I'm just going to just kind of wing it tonight, folks, because I just kind of did this because I was bored and didn't really have anything else to do. Um, so yes, Happy New Year, P Dub. Appreciate everybody joining. So yeah, those of you not, haven't celebrated it yet, and who are just joining here to like, waste some time or whatever, that's cool. I'll try not to make it too serious. Tonight's going to be wow. Man, this is where you really have to start like thinking that maybe we do kind of live in some sort of like strange simulation or whatever you want to call it that's now being like made more and more I don't know, apparent or something like that. I think this whole thing I discovered with the Village People and the use of the Village People songs with the Trump rallies. I don't know if those of you who noticed, but like at the Trump rallies, there's this tendency to um, play Village People songs like YMCA or Macho Man. What else does he play? Da, 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 da. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, he plays YMCA. That's the one. Okay. So it's kind of a strange selection, right, for Republican candidate if you know the history of the Village People. And I wonder sometimes, do people like, was it like just something that everybody just sort of forgot? Again, I come from a pretty laissez-faire, live and let live, liberal perspective. So, hey, whatever, I don't care. But but this whole thing with playing these Village People songs was like going, wow, dude, that's a bold selection. Like all these people, they show up and they're like these like, you know, a mixed bag of people from various backgrounds, but just that they all have a sort of like one of their anthems at these rallies is effectively a song that kind of popularized this sort of like gay themed disco that was already kind of on its way out when it was becoming popularized by the Village People. It was kind of like people were already sort of like over disco at that point, and some of the larger discos that were around were starting to close. And so it's kind of a strange cultural phenomenon that the Village People sort of was able to sort of like latch on to. And this is, and I'll show you guys. I know it's a strange New Year's topic, but I mean, it's just been such a weird, it's almost like we need to have almost like a bizarre decade in review, right? Why was it so strange the last 10 years, if anything? But especially uh, this thing that went on with the recall in California with Governor Newsom. So to put this in context for anybody who may be viewing this way, way off in the future, this year we had a recall with Governor Newsom in California. Governor Newsom, the impossibly polished politician who used to be the mayor of San Francisco and is always smiling pretty much. He always has a permanent grimace that he almost never it never leaves his face no matter what he's saying. He kind of always talks like this, almost like he's like a marionette. And there's just something where the voice is making it through the teeth, and he just keeps smiling no matter what's going on. That Governor Newsom, impossibly tanned and always smiling. Really, like about as wow. I mean, really, if you think about it, if you ever thought of like what kind of politician would California conceive of? It would be Governor Newsom, a person that really is like completely shine and show, and like it just makes like all the ladies kind of go like going, I think I can forget like this guy's incompetent or that he's not really doing the right thing here. It's just, again, sorry, ladies, I don't mean to insult you because I know, you're intellectuals too and everything like that. And just because this guy shows off his shiny pearlies and everything else like that, everything doesn't mean he fools you with his politics. I understand that. It's just that I am aware that that's kind of a thing that he's had. He's sort of like the dreamy governor candidate. And so it was sort of like a typical California where it was more of a popularity contest, equally the way he was sort of like popular around San Francisco when he was the mayor of there. The only reason why I even knew who Governor Newsom is because there was this comedian many years ago. Her name was Mary Van Note, and she had this whole series that she did on IFC that was called something like I'm in saying that she was in love with Mayor Newsom, or I can't remember what it was, or like Mayor Newsom really loves her, or Gavin Newsom really loves her. I can't remember what the series was, but it was really funny. I thought at the time, I don't know if I'd still find it funny. I have no clue. But at the time, I thought that it was really hilarious. And that's the only reason why I even knew who this guy was, is because I guess that was a San Francisco comedian, and she made reference to him constantly in this series about, him being this really just handsome mayor, I guess. Okay. And so it doesn't surprise me that a person that has sort of like a synthetic sheen and doesn't have a lot of substance and is more just like, it's climate change, guys. It's climate change. Just forget all the incompetence and bad policy. It's got to be the climate. It's got to be some man-made something that we've done to the environment that's causing all these wildfires. I knew what an incompetent person this guy was, this whole wildfire thing, and he started blaming it all on climate change. I'm like, seriously, dude? Like, your state had some of the worst of all the things that were happening, the shenanigans and everything like that. Please, I mean, which is to say, guys, there was a lot of things they were blaming on climate change out in California the last year. Well, let's talk about that when talking about the year in review. I guess it's been, what time was that? No, it's been a little over a year on that one. So I guess I'm a little bit late on that. But yeah, some of those wildfires, they did make it to, you know, through California while Newsom was there. I mean, this isn't relevant to that, but we have to talk about it relevant to this issue. But he basically, there's all these people that were kind of like, it was kind of known that there was agitators that were starting fires. I mean, there was evidence of it all over the place, but of course the politicians do the standard, like, guys, it's all climate change. It's like, well, it's not all climate change. There were some fires being started. I mean, and that wasn't even some conservative conspiracy theory or inflating or conflating something or whatever. I mean, there were multiple examples and actual video evidence of them doing it and bragging about it in some cases on social media that they were doing it and getting away with it. It was bizarre. Um, some of them were like the more Antifa based ones, for example. So, wow. Speaking of which, yeah, I learned actually because I've been trying to stay away from politics, but it was trippy that I learned that I especially try to stay away from like reading, like the day to day things. But when I learned that Antifa was actually doing like a direct action protest, like in an area that I used to like spend significant time in, I was like, wow. It like the reason why it sort of like went whoa to me is because it occurred to me that had I been there, I probably would have been looking right at it. This direct action thing where they were all meeting together to do something, I guess, serious that night. Yeah, that was pretty much right in an area that I could see before. Like, if I had been there, yeah, I would have actually been able to probably record it and watch it. Hmm, that would have been interesting. In hindsight, it's almost, it's definitely not unfortunate that I wasn't there because I'm glad I wasn't. But yeah, I could have recorded that whole thing actually. Probably got a really good footage of it too. So, but anyways, that's neither here nor there. The point is that we want to talk about happy topics today. So, or things that are goofy and absurd about what's going on. Hey, happy New Year, there, Kathy. Appreciate that. So that's why I thought this whole thing with Can't Stop the Music would be an interesting thing. So I hope you guys don't mind the themes or anything like that. I'm not trying to be offensive to anybody and I hope that it doesn't bother anybody else that I'm apologizing for it or anything like that. It just seems to me there just seems to be something kind of weird, like an elephant in the room. And I put this on Twitter. And hang on here. I'm gonna share this with you, and I'll get you a link to this. I bet I get you a link to the thread. That's probably better. Oops. All right, in case you wanted to follow along here. Hey, happy New Year, white boy. Oh, you rock. Yeah. Hey, no problem. Um, no, I don't really know about that. Here's the thing, guys. So somebody asked me if I thought dues were used for the fires. I think it's plausible. I didn't see enough evidence to me to like make me like chase a lot of the different leads around, just so you know. But if somebody says like, is that plausible? I go, sure. Now, then it's a matter of who would and why. This is where I think when it comes to quote these theories, whether they're substantiated with evidence or not, that's where it becomes a little bit dicey for folks that are dealing within our realms, because I delve into those types of information sets where people ask a question like that, and I'll say, okay, look, I'll answer it honestly. Like I'll give you my honest opinion of it, and then I kind of like, if I don't have something directly where I can draw a direct line from this to that, where it could be possible where that comes from, the best thing I can do to you is say like, well, look, I'm aware that there is an ecosystem that exists wherein if somebody wanted to facilitate such a thing, they could. Then you would have to again ask yourself, why would they do it? And then I used to be cynical about the why would they do it part, because again, that was something that anytime I got quote a little bit tinfoil to others, that's something they would always provide me as caution. They would say like, "Are you sure?" or "Why would they do that?" And then increasingly, I started to learn the why. I did actually learn as to the why would somebody do things like that. Then I became more concerned because I was kind of like, wow, I guess somebody would think to do that. And maybe they have thought to do that. And maybe they do seem to be doing that, right? Uh, so I'm always willing to look at information that's good, corroborative, better than average at least. Like if somebody could say, like, look, we understand, like, instead of somebody saying, does dues cause that? What I would like to see is somebody saying, Gabe, I read in this report where they cited that this type of energy device that's located in this lab on the East Coast or on this lab in the Northwest or someplace in Dulce or someplace in New Mexico or something like that, right? Where we understand that it operates on the principles of ionospheric bounce and directed energy, and that it can aim at a specific spot and create enough heat, that type of thing. When I get that type of specificity, or somebody says it's within this book and it's worth your reading because of these reasons, then I can at least attach something more onto it where I can go, okay, great, now I can actually agree or disagree or provide more whatever, to substantiate it or whatever, or just disagree if that's the case. But yeah, the only reason why I mentioned that, guys, is because the fires that happened in the Northwest, literally one person that I knew at the time, the fire got like within a few miles of their cabin. And then the other fire that was further up north affected my parents, who, again, I'm not in communication with any longer. But at the time, well, nothing's changed. But at the time, a lot of my property was up there. I don't know what to do with it, or when, again, I'm in a kind of a strange position now through which to retrieve anything like that. But yeah, it was there um, during that fire. And again, obviously, I'm concerned about people's well-beings, even if I have certain disagreements or whatever. But and then there's pets and things like that, and there's just other people's animals, and so I obviously didn't want any harm caused to anybody out there, even though I had some disagreements at the time. And but I was really surprised, like at the time when I was researching it, I was kind of like, man, like I heard that they had to evacuate. And one relative of mine told me, like, yeah, they evacuated. And so even though I was kind of pissed at them, I was still kind of worried about the situation. um, and I kind of monitored it pretty closely. But as I monitored the fires up there in Oregon, I really started to find this thread of deliberate starting. That's the best thing I can tell you, is like, it's one thing if you're a person that passively reviews information. If you're going to a 9 to 5 job every day and you're just reading like a story or two here and there about it, you're not really going to learn at the specificity like others did as to just how rigged a lot of these wildfires were. I can tell you in the Northwest, there were multiple reports, video, and people posting on social media that were part of these social justice warrior movements, things similar to Antifa, that were literally bragging about their fire starting. There was people that were, they were kind of hiring homeless people and drug addicts around Portland, just people that are easily exploited. Like you wave, a couple $100 in front of them to do something like start a fire off a highway, or offer them free drugs to do something, or get them high and then tell them to go do something, or tell them you'll get them high after they do something. More importantly, I'm sure that they exploit these people frequently, guys. It's Portland. If you're familiar with it, it's a culture. I don't want to get to whatever today, but it's, how do I say it, guys? It's like they welcome the homeless, but it's like it's kind of just like because they're there for spare parts. It's there because they want to have like this pool of human resource that they pretend to love and care about and attend to. And yeah, they do. But you guys, it's more about harvesting. I don't know what else to tell you. That's what I've kind of figured out when it's all said and done. I mean, once a person has enough money, then really it's about who has the healthiest organs. And when theirs fail to be healthy, can they have yours? Once you get all the money in the world, that's really what's left. I would think you need to really think about what I'm telling you here. And that's why they are so expert at concealing the organ harvesting economy and everything to do with human harvesting in relation to that. Yeah, yeah. So I'm just telling you, I studied a lot of the stories that were behind the ones in Oregon, because I'm telling you, literally, those wildfires got about a mile, like the evacuation zone. Like, well, literally, my parents, they had to clear out of the town and the house. I mean, they had to leave the house and that they were in, and they couldn't come back for days. It was almost like a week, I think, that they couldn't go back, and that was during the wildfire. And the thing I learned about that is that hang on. The thing I learned about that was that there was just like multiple reports around the county that I specifically used to live in, and so I knew. Look, guys, I'm more than average familiar with the where the corruption pockets are, where it's known. Like where things are rigged, or there's people that aren't very on the up and up, especially when it comes to the things that I was studying relative to telecommunications, in tandem with the installation of equipment that law enforcement and public safety uses, exploits within their equipment to just have the first bit of information. Informational awareness is just huge as far as a market economy goes. And when a business can't make money in the more straightforward, legitimate ways, they just have ways of siphoning data from law enforcement and others to sell and buy, buy and sell to others, for money. I mean, supporting gangs and cartels for with informational awareness relative to police actions and things of that nature. I mean, it's no wonder that the police are giving up so much. And this is where it sucks, guys. I don't know what else to tell you. Like I'm such a I have my arms reached out in so many different, like in both directions, I guess you could say, on this one, because I'm aware of the people that have issues with law enforcement or people who abuse authority. I know where they come from, why they feel the way they do. I also feel right now it's the time more than ever where we really need to support and back the people that are doing their jobs legitimately. um, and they do care, and they do deserve our support, and they really do deserve to have a safe place to work, and as much as it is possible, because the job is already dangerous. But there shouldn't be too many excessive factors to make it even more dangerous than it already is. And so I understand why there's mechanisms in place to make them safer. um, but I also uh, this is where it's such a catch 22, you guys, because there's just so many abuses going on relative to concealing people's identities, and uh, ways of hiding information routes and tapping into them and reselling information. And too many things are getting gotten away with. And there has to be some degree of accountability. I really feel like my material this December, it's bizarre how it always seems to happen close to Christmas. And I didn't call it the 12 days of disclosure this time, but it kind of was very similar to what I did a couple years ago in Vegas. It's the 12 days of disclosure. This last few weeks, especially, I would say the level of detail I've gone on some of the material, it is extremely relevant when it comes to solving some of these larger problems. And so you can kind of think of it as like, that was the on the 12 days of disclosure, I guess you could call it. I just didn't do 12 days in a row on a report every day, kind of like I was doing there. But yeah, for a while I was doing my reports a couple years ago when I was in Vegas. I was doing a lot of the things involving the bloodline families, things like that. So I would say, like, on the 12 days of disclosure. So happy new year. Welcome to the stream, everybody. Welcome. Welcome, Willow. Welcome, Fred. Thank you for joining there. Yeah, so sorry, my back thing here. Uh, all right. So where do I go here? So yeah, that's the fire thing, just so you know, the wildfire. That's the I did some material on it, I think, in the around the times that it was happening. So you could probably find if you did a search in my under my my channel under the videos, you could probably find all the things involving the wildfires. Yeah, I was doing material where I was kind of tracking it, day by day, I think for a while there, just because I had above average familiarity. And so that's when I personally, around the time of the wildfires, is when I really started to kind of like review the Antifa information like in a way, way deeper, more detailed fashion. Because there was times where I thought I knew a few people that had actually kind of gotten associated with it. And I would look at the protests, and I don't know if they were playing around with opacity layers on some of the faces, but there was a few people that I saw like over and over again in two of these clips where I'm going like, man, two of those people in the front really look like some folks that I used to know, like pretty closely. But it was seemed really like really hard to believe that right now they would be doing something like that just because their day-to-day jobs are so straightforward, and I don't think they could get away with being that weird, even behind the scenes. I think it would just be too obvious, even in a place like Portland. Yet I couldn't shake it, and in a way, I wanted like other people that like knew them to review it with me to say like, I wish, but I at the time I just didn't have that many people, if anybody, that I could like nobody around me that I could talk to, and so but the thing is, like, so after I spent like a few hours, like really, no, not a few hours, like a few days actually. I spent like a few days like going through as much of that Portland Antifa material as I could. And I found more angles, more detailed footage from different people of the central characters in Rose City Antifa. Like I researched it. Like I made a point to like see who these people are. Like who are these key figures in like the Portland political social justice warrior movement, and then finally finding the disturbing trend of them being oftentimes people with histories of being sex offenders, and then beyond that being pedophiles, and then beyond that being people that have done some really horrible things. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to keep it more lighthearted tonight. I'll avoid discussing those dark topics. Although, hey, this channel we delve into pretty much all the material as far as you know, you- there's almost I try to do it respectfully, so it's not there to shock people with like the terms or whatever to say this person's about. So I apologize, guys, but um, yeah. Anyways, all right. But yeah, so I was trying to do all that, and then once I did the Antifa review in more detail, and I actually developed like a whole series of playlists where I was just saving as many clips as I could find from the various people that record like on the front lines or get really deep into the protests all around Portland. There's a whole group of people that have channels, and then you just start to like draw relationship maps. You start to notice that nearly everybody, whether they're friend or enemy, like you can nearly like zoom out from it and then just see how it almost feels always like a pre-planned scripted live action role play, even right down to sometimes the people recording the footage and putting it out there. Not always, but quite frequently. And I think some are just buying into the deception and are genuinely following it around and believe it. But for the most part, I think it's a lot of staged things. Now, after I reviewed it really closely, I was able to sort of rule out that at least one of the people, one of the ladies that I thought was, like side by side with one of the leaders there, I thought was somebody that I knew, but it wasn't. They do look in certain angles and in many parts of the footage, like if they're wearing sunglasses and things like that, especially, it's really difficult to tell from a distance, especially. Like you'd be like, wow, they really look alike. That's why I'm kind of concerned that at times they play around with what are called opacity layers. So, say for example, you wanted to trick somebody like at a specific IP address level into believing like I look more like, I don't know, I don't know, anybody. like your relative or something like that. They could just literally start taking your relative's face and integrating their face into my image at about a 10 to 20% opacity. Just adding little bits of their features in slight ways in the mouth and the eyes or whatever, in ways that don't radically change my appearance, but just enough to where it kind of pulls you in a way that's a little bit deeper. They do things like that, guys. I would never do something like that myself. I'm just telling you, like, uh, if you've ever watched David Fincher's The Game, where the television begins talking to him, and the news anchor starts going like, "I am talking to you right now. You're a rich fat cat, and I am talking to you, and you're going to learn a lesson now," or something like that. I can't remember what he says to him, but he's basically informing him that his whole life is going to turn into this great big simulation in the game, and it's going to get interesting. And he suddenly has this conversation with a television, doesn't understand what's going on. And at the time that movie came out, in the early '90s, I think, or mid '90s, maybe late '90s, that's when the game came out with David Fincher, by David Fincher, starring Michael Douglas. The concept of your television just like interrupting whatever's going on, and the news anchor suddenly going like, "Hi, I'm talking to you right now." You would just jump out of your seat and say, "Get the F out of here." And even today, if somebody did that to you without you having a warning, it still might have that effect on you. But within minutes, if you're at least above average and knowledgeable, you could think of different ways it could happen just based on all the technology, especially if you watch this channel. There's like all these different ways now with consumer level technology. You don't have to be a special effects person. You don't have to have severe, whether great hacks to do this. It would be a pretty easy thing to do and get away with fooling a person, on a one-to-one basis if you wanted to. But even then, even with the modern technology now, I would still say pulling off something like that would still be a bit challenging to do it like to where you really fool the person of above average intelligence, or well, not intelligence but above average level, because that's not fair. But somebody who knows more about like how these things work with streaming video, ways you can backdoor the television set, put in your own device to stream into the television, you know what I'm saying? It'd be a lot easier to trick somebody like older or like your parents that don't have as much technical experience, or maybe yours do. Sorry if I'm being prejudiced there for anybody, not to be ageist or anything, but technical knowledge, I'm sure many of you know more than I do. Um, yeah. Um, Sorry, I got to do my back here really quick. But yeah, anyways, there's a lot of ways to trick people, is the point. So I had to at least, review it more. I couldn't really get a lot of people. I didn't want to disrupt a lot of things. You don't want to really go to like a lot of people like you used to know and go like, "Would you mind looking at this footage to see if this is somebody that we used to know?" I mean, it's not really a cool thing to do. So I just kind of had to sit on it for a while, and just hope that it wasn't what I thought it was. And but when all of these things started happening around Portland, I have to tell you guys, I mean, whatever you think of Portland, it's a city that I personally really loved. I spent a lot of time there for many years. It had some of the best years of my life around Portland, and it is a beautiful city. There's a national park in Portland. It's literally like a place that has a national park right in the middle of the well, it's at the edge of the city. But how many places can you just go to the edge of the city and then park your car in a very serene place where there's like a little stream nearby, and almost nobody's around really. I mean, like not even a very much used park, easy to park there, free parking too most of the time. And you just walk into this area and it's just filled with trails, trail after trail after trail that go on for miles. And this is a national park filled with trees, and you don't hear the cars, you don't hear the horns honking, you don't hear any of the traffic. I mean, and it's all there. And they took a city like that and they just turned it into a total garbage heap in just a matter of a couple years. It's like, it's really made me like wonder what has this whole dynamic of Trump versus establishment, Clinton, Obama, um, era. I guess because honestly, guys, I see the Obamas just as an extension of sort of what the Clintons are. The Clintons basically will toe the line with the Obamas. The Obamas will toe the line with the Clintons. This is a one hand washes the other system. So when people are talking now, like if Michelle Obama runs, she'll definitely beat Trump. Or well, we hear Hillary's thinking of running again, guys. I mean, really, I mean, is this where we want to be in our country, where it's just really like offensive flavor versus offensive flavor to the other group? I mean, why is there so much of an interest in keeping us this polarized at this kind of level, when I don't really think, honestly, the more I get around in the world and the more I talk to people, I don't think that we're really that ideologically different, most of us. I just don't. I really feel like more of us in the world think alike. That's all, you know? Yeah. I mean, he got Killer Mike, he has a song about Reagan, that he can't stand Reagan, right? It's this 3.5 minute song about how much he doesn't like Ronald Reagan and he doesn't understand the legend of him. Something that I understand that sentiment. I don't understand Reagan worship necessarily. Um, but he's got this one great line. He goes, "It's just like the Bushes, Clinton and Obama, another talking head telling lies on teleprompters." Why do you guys all feel like your flavor somehow is different than the rest of them? I mean, even Killer Mike, who was side by side with Bernie, said that about Obama in his song. Just like the Bushes, Clinton, and Obama, just another talking heads telling lies on teleprompters. I mean, I like Killer Mike. That was a solo album though, and not the Run the Jewels material, but yeah, I know everybody keeps saying it's not even the real her, but I mean, whether it's her or not, does I mean, guys, fine, okay. You know what? You can debate that point till the cows come home. None of these people care. They don't care if say you're right. Okay, say that that's true. Nobody cares. So now what do you do? You're just gonna have to attack it into their level, because until you can prove that point, until you can actually tangibly prove it, no matter how obvious it might be to many people, until you can tangibly prove it, you have to attack that issue from a whole different angle. Like, how do you really address it realistically? Then you have to start getting at the roots of how does an ecosystem exist that would even make what you're saying possible? That's where my material comes in. Because I'm telling you guys, like, I can actually discuss not quite what you're talking about. Because look, I do kind of know how people disappear and come back, right? Like that whole system. I do think there's quite a bit of people that, how do I say it? They do have doubles, or they have relatives, or they have twins or whatever that might stick around. Like sometimes these people were always twins, they were always triplets, but they represented themselves as one person. This made it possible for one person, for a set of twins or triplets to effectively be one politician. And this would be a very powerful tool to have for, you know, well, guys, why do you think that the Nazi Party, for example, why do you think Hitler, why do you think that Goebbels, not Goebbels, shit. Oh, why am I forgetting his name? It's done. That's not Joseph Goebbels, because that's the he's the propagandist. Oh crap! Who's the one that did the experiments? He's the whole central character of the Boys from Brazil. How am I forgetting his name? Wow. Why am I drawing a blank here? Well, it is late, but don't forget to remind me, like, because I don't want to like distract people. We have to do the countdown. I guess that's important. People are experiencing, people are experiencing New Year's Eve and New Year's at different intervals at different places around the country. No, it's not Hess. It's not Borman. It's not Eichmann. Hang on a second. I'll find out. I'll remember it. Actually, I cover this topic in on my Twitter. Or if I just look up, I'll just look up Brazil and my name, my Twitter name, and that'll find the slide, and I'll find it that way. That's probably the long way to do it, though. But at least I'll have slides to show you guys what I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean, I want this to be kind of humorous tonight, even though this is kind of like, a tragically is funny because it's true kind of thing. Oh, wow, man. I thought I put inside this thread like his name. Mangala. Mangala. That's it. Mangala. Thank you. Of course you guys got it. Of course. See, I knew this audience would get it. It was probably you guys probably typed it in a long time ago and it's just now showing up on my screen. I'm sure that's what happened. I know it did. This is I could nearly psychically sense you going, "Oh, oh, oh, oh." Like at least a few of you. I know you know who Mangala is. Come on. Yes, you're right. Ding 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 ding. PW wins for saying that one first, but Robert, since Robert put out Hess, Borman, Eichmann, I don't know. I think there's a tie there. We're just gonna say it's a tie. That should I think at least being able to list three before saying Mangala deserves at least like some degree of concession, especially considering we really don't know which one of those Mangalas came in first. They say 1243. I'm gonna call that a tie for you both. Unless, of course, PW, you can name more Nazis in 5 seconds. Go. No, I'm just kidding. No, 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 no. We're not going to name Nazis tonight. It's all right. Um, okay. No, we got to get down. Like, okay, so if you think this is funny, all right. So, like, now that we're all having some humorous times here, right? Let's let's get into the topic here. This is the year. This is the wait. It's not even the year in review. In a way, it is because of the California recalls. So let me get that on the screen before I talk about this, because otherwise it doesn't really make sense, you know. All right. And as you guys remember, there was another one. There was another recall election that involved Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's just bizarre that these things always involve movie stars and people that have been in films. I mean, I know it's California, but I mean, really, guys, you can't find somebody that like I don't know. I don't know, guys. This is gonna blow your mind though if you didn't know this. Seriously, like you're gonna like if you didn't know about "Can't Stop the Music." Wow, tonight is gonna be it's gonna be an amazing night. How do I say this, guys? All right. I know my audience comes from all walks of life and everything like that, and you're all welcome here. So please don't take any offense to this. It's just that I also know that sometimes people can be a bit sensitive if you get into some of the themes that the village people delved into. So I'll just warn you in advance. I'm going to talk about some of those things. I'll try to do my best to be respectful to everybody. I won't, try to be mocking or anything like that. But it is, guys, pretty humorous. So I have to be me. I won't be whatever, you know. I'm a pretty understanding guy, so I'm not trying to like I'm not trying to give a pass for me to be somehow like whatever, homophobic or something like that. It's just that it is kind of like a very 70s garish example of sort of, I guess you could say, gay culture. This can't stop the music thing, and the fact that there's this weird connection between Donald Trump and Caitlyn, formerly known as Bruce Jenner. I mean, what was going on with this whole thing? Where was Jenner? Wait a second. Yeah, there's Jenner. Okay, so here it is. All right, those who don't know, This is such a bizarre story, guys. I cannot believe it. It just occurred to me. This is like I have another connection to this whole thing. Wow. Okay. French Laundry. I actually know about French Laundry because I used to work in the wireless industry in the Bay Area. And when I was assigned on the contract, I remember there was all of these bigwigs coming into town, and they were going to have dinner at French Laundry. And somebody said that like the service had to be perfect at French Laundry, like they had to have it all optimized and make sure it worked excellent at French Laundry. So, in case you're wondering just how much power some people have, when I was an engineer, I literally had to drop everything sometimes if rich enough people came into town and were going to eat at a fancy enough restaurant. Yeah, like people were dispatched to fine tune the network and make sure calls did not drop in there. Um, so anyways, there was this whole like thing involving a big high end, I guess, you know, fundraiser at French Laundry for Governor Newsom. But anyways, it was a special. It says the 2021 California gubernatorial recall election was a special recall election that began in August 2021 and concluded on September 14th, 2021, in which California voters chose not to recall incumbent Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom, elected for the term January 2019 to January 2023. Had the recall been successful, the replacement candidate with the most votes on the second part of the ballot would have assumed the office. The election followed the same format used in the November 2020 general election. Okay, so you don't need to know all that, except that, you know, basically these were some of the people that were running. But what makes this interesting is the whole Jenner thing, right? So 6 Republican candidates, Faulkner, Elder, Cox, Jenner, Kiley, and Oates, were invited to participate along with Newsom. This is for a debate. The Nixon Foundation announced that all the Republican candidates, with the exception of Jenner, had accepted the invitation, and Governor Newsom had not responded. A day after the debate was announced, with Elder as a participant, the Elder campaign issued a statement that he would not attend the debate. I don't know what this whole thing was about, guys. I guess everybody raised a lot of money to do nothing, and nothing really happened as a result of it. Way to go, everybody. Way to go, California. The wheels keep spinning. Everybody raised money for political candidates, and nothing happened. All right. But as you see here, guys, Caitlyn Jenner is one of these candidates. Now, all right. So now that you understand this is all involving Governor Newsom, the California election, this is Caitlyn Jenner. Those unfamiliar, Caitlyn Jenner, Caitlyn Marie Jenner, was born William Bruce Jenner. Jenner played college football. He was an Olympic decathlete, and he was also the Wheaties spokesman. Those unfamiliar, he was a spokesman for Wheaties. Jenner has 6 children with his 3 successive wives, Christy Crownover, Linda Thompson, and Kris Jenner. And from 2007 to 2021, appeared on the reality television series Keeping Up with the Kardashians with Kris, their daughters Kendall and Kylie Jenner, and Kris's other children, Kourtney, Kim, Khloe, and Rob Kardashian. Jenner publicly came out as a trans woman in April 2015, announcing her new name in July. From 2015 to 2016, she starred in the reality television series I Am Kate, which focused on her gender transition. She has been called the most famous transgender woman in the world. Jenner is a transgender rights activist, although her views on transgender issues have been criticized by many other trans and LGBTQ activists. Yeah, so it's like what you'll usually find is, because I think that because, you know, Caitlyn Jenner is allegedly like the Republican candidate, there's this sort of moderate thing going on where Caitlyn Jenner is sort of both a kind of a moderate Republican, but also a more of a moderate when it comes to LGBTQ issues. And so, which there's this part of me that's sort of like, when you look at it as cultural engineering, I kind of like go, all right, you know, because usually when I see Caitlyn Jenner say something relative to issues involving these sort of transgender things, they're usually injecting something a little bit more sane than average. How much of a ploy that is or a ruse that is, I really don't know, and I wouldn't care to speculate excessively. I was just surprised to learn some of the things that were going on with this whole Caitlyn Jenner when Caitlyn was Bruce Jenner, because now we're getting into the film career of Caitlyn, formerly known as Bruce. Let's see here. Television and film career. Jenner began television appearances in the mid 70s, both as herself and in character roles. One of Jenner's first reoccurring television roles was a co host of the short lived daytime talk and variety series America Alive. In 1978, the comedy Can't Stop the Music, that's where we're going next, was Jenner's first film appearance. She starred in the made for TV movies. This was as Bruce Jenner. So let's see here. See, I don't. Okay, guys. So it's confusing to me. I guess now this all applies because it's Caitlyn is she, but back then it was he. I guess is Bruce. But so this was Bruce Jenner back then. Those who don't know. All right. All right. So let's get on to that film appearance. This movie, guys, this is the kind of thing. Now, I again, this is why I try to say, like, I apologize here. Just again, I'm from Portland. Like I said, guys, I'm a straight person. I don't experiment, never have, or anything else like that. But I've always been a person that's pretty understanding. I guess I figure I'm pretty laissez-faire, live and let live. If you're not hurting anybody and everything is between consenting adults, I'm generally the kind of person that says, "Fine, I don't have to see it or witness it." As long as everybody's cool with each other and everything like that, everybody y'all have fun. Okay. Um, and that's just how I am with just in general. Okay. What's between adults is between adults, and that's fine. All right. So that's kind of like the understanding I think quite a few people that are from my background tend to have. We tend to be a little bit more whatever, a little bit less intrusive when it comes to the choices other people make. Fine. Again, guys, I'm not going to tell you that I've radically changed from that perspective. I mean, per se, but where I would say I guess you could say I found my balance with why I find, and here's my, I guess you could say it's just an olive branch to people that are from maybe some of these communities because, you know, there is balance to be struck here when you see groups like Antifa trying to normalize something like trying to attach your entire community to something like as absurd as like things involving children, like attaching your activities to children and things involving abuse of them or that type of thing like they did down there in that hot tub incident in Southern California. I mean, that's obviously like any sensible person from any community knows what that is and isn't down with it and isn't cool with it. And one would hope that the majority of people who identify as LGB, whatever that is, or whatever they identify as is, um, would probably agree that some of the things that they were trying to normalize in that protest is wrong. You don't just wave a magic wand and say suddenly like, okay, voila, that 50-year-old man believes he's a 5-year-old child, so therefore he has a right to do anything a 5-year-old child does or would. No, actually, no, that's not really true because that's not how it works. But that's the kind of fuzzy logic that they're dealing with here with these that at a surface level they've learned the effect this has. Most people aren't like me. They won't look deeper into what that whole thing was to know that no, this wasn't just some conservatives running down there going like, "Grr, you're gay and bad. I don't understand you." That wasn't what it was. It's that they were literally trying to normalize something that was really pretty horrible. That would have just basically involved pretty, I mean, well, not even subtle child abuse. I mean, literally just exposing themselves to a kid, guys. There's no other way to put it. That's what they were trying to normalize in that incident because everybody dances around topics. Again, I don't like saying it, but that's what was going on out there, right? So, anyways, guys, sorry, bad topic to talk about again, especially since we're going to be going into the New Year's here. But there has to be a balance struck with these things, guys. That's all I'm talking about here. So those of you who are going to experience the New Year's, I don't want to ruin it for you here. So let's delve into like we'll get back into the whole "Can't Stop the Music" thing or whatever here in a second. So I wonder if I can just sort of like do. Let me see if I can get a clock up here. Wait, what a transition! Way to be a buzzkill, Gabe. I'm trying to have my New Year's here. Yeah, I know. Okay, why would you even watch this right now? I did promise you guys a better whatever topic. Like it was going to be like about the weirdness of this movie. It will be, I promise you. But we got a countdown here. I think. Let me see if I can do like a thing here. No, I can't. But okay. Well, we are down to like I think pretty close to like the 30 seconds before like some people in some time zones are going to experience their New Year's. So, for those people, I guess we can do a countdown. I know I want this to be relevant for later too, but hey. Okay. Ah. Oh, wait. Okay, we're at 20 seconds and 15 seconds. And all right, guys, here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Happy New Year's to everybody who's celebrating New Year's out there. I figure since it's top of the hour, there's people that are celebrating in various parts here. I have audiences from all over the freaking place. Some of them have already had their New Year's, and some have yet to experience them. So to everybody, yes, Happy New Year's. I'm glad. I think I don't know. I have hope for 2022. I really do. I really do. As much as I'm getting into this dark topic right now, I think that once it's gotten to this level of absurdity, guys, that's the reason why I'm unpeeling the layers here, even though it's kind of late at night and everything like that. It's just because um, things like that really need to have their like their true intentions exposed, I guess you could say. Yeah, Happy New Year. Yeah, congratulations. You made it. Hey. Nobody here died of COVID, I heard. Isn't that true? I'm pretty sure nobody in this room died of COVID this year. So that's one thing we all got going for us. None of us died of COVID. I'd be willing to bet that none of us will. Well, thank you. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful to have y'all here. Yeah, isn't it bizarre like the kind of things that are going on right now? Like really, guys. Like I never really I used to always think to myself like, well, why are you guys so upset? Why are these conservative people so upset? Like, why don't they just like leave it all alone? Or why, because I didn't look deeper into these stories, you guys. I just didn't. I never looked deeper into them. And this is what I hope you guys, this is my olive branch, just to people on both sides. This is what I hope we achieve this year, honestly. Please, 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 please. If you're left or you consider yourselves a Democrat or that's the one you're gonna vote for if you're gonna lean one direction or another. Will you please be more self-critical of your group. Please show others like on the other side that you're a group of people that can be reasoned with and is willing to listen to some rational information from some well-informed people. Because that's, I mean, when I open myself up to a lot of information, again, I haven't really regretted it. Some of it I thought was kind of bogus or garbage. And some of it I was actually had my mind changed over time. Like I didn't actually believe certain things that people were bringing to me, and then over time, the way that they approached me just increasingly appealed to me in different. Well, actually, just appealed to the intellectual part of my brain where I'm more I require more data and more information for me to have that part of my mind like know that I'm reaching the truth at least, you know. So yeah, hey, that's the other thing too, guys. Like the whole vaccine thing this year has been weird and everything else like that. We can talk about those things tonight a bit again too. Like, I guess I want to talk about this weird movie though, and I hope you guys don't mind. I mean, I'm not again, I know people don't like things that how do I find that happy balance between just telling you guys like I'm not trying to do like heavy themes with something involving like gay things or whatever. I'm just kind of like wondering. I'm wondering why we as people that like whatever, like why doesn't people just like ask themselves like why would Donald Trump choose the Village People as his sort of like rally theme songs? Why would it become such a known thing? Why would he get like so deep into it? Oh, I'll show you here. There. Let me put it on the screen here. So this is the movie that I'm talking about. It's called Can't Stop the Music. And so here, since you're asking, I'm just going to get deep into it here since so the lead in was the 2021 recall election and how the whole governor recall thing and the election with Donald Trump intersects with Can't Stop the Music and how there's this bizarre sort of Baphomet as above so below mirrors of perception, moderate politics, red blue. I did a whole series of things and slides and not deep analysis on it, but just some quick thoughts about what I thought was really going on. You know what I mean? And and so Wikipedia, I'll just write what it says here is a Can't Stop the Music is a 1980 American musical comedy film directed by Nancy Walker. That in and of itself requires deep examination. Let's just start there. Guys. Like I just I'm sorry. This is just one of those things where I was like going, what who made these decisions? Who like woke up one day and we're like, "What? I know what we're gonna do. It's gonna be huge. I'm gonna make a bloated musical that costs way too much money about the Village People and how they got started. And you know who's gonna direct this super blockbuster? Nancy Walker. Oh yeah, Nancy Walker. Nobody knows how to party at the disco like Nancy Walker. You know Nancy Walker. Known at the time for this. Hells yeah. That's right. Bounty freaking paper towels, man. Now, if you can't trust her to make a movie about a half gay disco troupe, I don't know who you can trust, man. That to me that says hip, fresh, 70s, 80s disco. It just says like that says John Travolta, that says Saturday Night Fever. When I think of those things, like beyond John Travolta, my next thought is Nancy Walker, Rhoda, and those Bounty commercials. I mean, when I'm thinking disco and Village People, yeah, like that's like that. I don't know about you guys, but I think she was the natural for this. I'm being okay. I'm obviously being a wise ass, but what was the logic here? Somebody's got to explain this to me. What was the logic here? Okay, so on the poster, in case you're wondering, this is Steve Gutenberg. Many of you might remember him as Mahoney. Any public, no, no, any police academy fans? Mahoney. Mahoney. You guys like my impersonation of the guy? We have many, many things here. Mahoney. What's his name? What's that actor's name? It's George something. What the hell is his name on Lassard? Yeah, Lassard. He was Lassard, I think, on in the Police Academy movies. But the main character in the first four, guys, it's bizarre how much I know about bad '80s comedies. I just know everything. Seriously, go ahead and quiz me. Go ahead and try it. Like, see, you won't see me. I'll show you my hands and I'll answer questions. Go ahead. Try to, try to get one past me. That's an interesting thing there. Jonathan says disco was developed to make a generation soft with pleasant, non-aggressive tunes. Yeah, I mean, there's something to that. I mean, look at that poster. You mean, like that move that pumping fist move that Bruce Jenner is doing there. It reminds me of that dance that Elaine does on Seinfeld, where she kind of goes like, and she kind of kicks one leg out and pumps her fist a little bit. Remember that episode of Seinfeld where they make fun of Elaine's dancing? That's what that looks like. This movie is just so bad. I'm a fan actually sometimes of these bad kind of, schlocky, over budget. Like really, honestly, they have their own type of like genius to them and like how bad they are. Um, there's a bunch of movies like this. One of the other ones that I like is called Thank God It's Friday. It's that one's actually way more tolerable. Honestly, that's than Can't Stop the Music. Actually, I don't think I can watch Can't Stop the Music again beyond just like the analysis of it because it's just a little bit too much. Yeah, it's a little bit too much. That's all I can say. It's too much. It's just it teeters over that line to where I just kind of go, all right, okay, I'm understanding, but all right, okay, guys, all right. Again, there's it's all understanding. There's no problems there, but it is like 2 hours and 3 minutes long of this. I mean, really, guys, seriously, it's 2 hours and 3 minutes of these guys here directed by that gal there. No, seriously, these guys here that were in the Village People, like, I'm a macho man. Hey, hey, macho man. Yeah, these guys. Yeah, yeah. She's the one that directed them.
Known for Rhoda. Remember Nancy Walker and those bounty commercials?
So sorry. Hope I didn't offend anybody. Wasn't trying to or anything like that, guys. Yeah, it is. Look, guys, I watch Rocky Horror. Oh man, you know what's trippy about that? Jonathan, man, dude, what's trippy about what you just said? This is so bizarre that you just mentioned Rocky Horror. I'm so glad you did. Because there is an actress in this movie that every time I saw her, I'm like going, that looks about as much like Tim Curry as the transvestite in Rocky Horror Picture Show. Like, and it's not to be insulting to the lady who plays her or what everything like that, but I started wondering if there was some face masking, and I was like, is that just Tim Curry? And they just made some slight alterations, and he can alternate between being, one gender and the other, and that was his way of like hinting at it in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, because those unfamiliar, Tim Curry plays a transgender or a transvestite. I don't know what's the actual. I think he refers to himself as a quote sweet transvestite in the film Rocky Horror Picture Show. But there's a character, there's an actress that's in this movie that looks so much like Tim Curry, right down to the curly black hair, the length of it, the big brown eyes, the way that the lipstick goes, the facial expressions, like all of the woman that's in this movie's, well, she's got to be, hang on, they probably have her name here in the credits. That's not her. It's not Valerie Perrine. It's not Barbara Rush. Might be this lady. Yeah. Yeah, this is the lady. It's Marilyn Sokol because I remember her in Foul Play. Marilyn, that's trippy. So again, I apologize. I didn't mean to be whatever, but she does. Yeah, guys, I'm sorry. Like, if I let me find her. Like, you guys have to admit. Oh, not there. Hang on. What? Two images? Oh, no way. No way. Okay, there we go. Guys, am I right? Come on. Now, what? Stupid thing. Man, IMDb just gets more and more difficult to navigate. I swear to God, it doesn't get any better. Well, I mean, you can kind of see even like right there before it switches over, like the similarity. So before anybody just calls me a jerk or anything like that, I mean, come on, man, really? Hang on, I'm gonna do like a screenshot here. Give me a second here. I'll show you something. I did a photo comparison here, like between that actress and again, I'm not saying they're the same person or anything like that. I'm just telling you, like, it's really like, yeah. So there was like a part of me that kind of wondered, like, is it possible? Because I know that they were using some pretty sophisticated, like CGI face masking, even in the 70s and 80s. They just didn't. People didn't know about it yet. They were still using a mix of optic bend, a little bit of prosthetics, and then ways of changing and bending people's faces. And so I'm thinking a lot of times they'll like do a role like this. And the whole point of him saying, like signaling out that he's a sweet transvestite is because maybe he's just simply saying that sometimes he literally does an entire movie as a woman using face masking. And I think that this has been something that's been done in actually, guys, I'm certain of it. I mean, I've seen it happen in other cases where they either change their gender, they change their age radically. One of those two things they're able to do with the face masking, or they're able to change their race. That was especially valuable back in the black and white days, because sometimes like certain people couldn't get roles because of their racial profile or their racial makeup, and so it was a way for an actor who normally couldn't get roles. Well, Like if it was a black actor, for example, it was a way for them literally to get a role as a white actor, or if for a white actor in some cases to actually take a role from a person that would have been an actor who was black or another whatever, and just didn't want to wear makeup to entirely. They could actually use these tinting changes as well as prosthetics and makeup to make changes to people's physical appearances. So I anymore, until I actually can physically see a person in nature, I just say I don't necessarily always believe that a one person is always just one person. That's all. But I'm not saying that she's not a real person or anything, guys. I have no clue. I've never looked deeper into her, know her background. I was just watching her in this movie Can't Stop the Music and going, God, she reminds me a lot of Tim Curry in Rocky Horror Picture Show, and it was that way when I saw her in Foul Play, also with Chevy Chase and Goldie Hawn. Yeah, so if you guys want to, I mean, her name is Marilyn What is it? Hang on. Oh crap. Where is it? Oh, Sokol, Sokol. That's so bizarre. Because that story I was just telling you was about Antifa SoCal, where SoCal. You see, guys, it wasn't just that they had slight like similarities. It's essence. It's like a way that they kind of like, a way a person looks at a camera. It'll translate from one avatar to the next. Their essence doesn't go away. So when somebody's using face masking technology, like if they try to trick you into thinking that they're like President Bush, for example, if I sat here wearing a digital face mask of President George H. Bush, he's dead. So, you know, I would just have to convince you somehow I was him, and it either faked my death and came back looking even better than before, or whatever else, right? Or you just would be like, no, that's a person wearing a face mask. But it would help if I had some of his mannerisms down so that I wouldn't talk like Gabe. I talk more like George. Even if I couldn't get his voice perfect, like, right, it would be important that I at least like try to mirror some of his essences as like his persona, that I try to integrate some of his mannerisms while I'm imitating him, even if the face masking is doing most of the work. And so sometimes what was going on back in the 70s and 80s was, yeah, it was a chance for a male actor to have female roles. And then if nobody knew, great, right? Or a woman who wanted to have male roles, that they would do it great. And then Hollywood was doing all of these sort of flips on this theme, right? They were doing movies like Tootsie, where Dustin Hoffman pretends to be a woman to be in whatever. But see, that's using, makeup and tricking people in real life and going, oh, you can't tell that I'm a woman. Well, everybody knew that Dustin Hoffman would be. I mean, nobody would ever in a million years accept Dustin Hoffman as a woman. But if Dustin Hoffman used a face mask, if Dustin Hoffman wore a face mask and appeared as a woman in all kinds of movies, and all these people kept a secret, he just simply stood right next to them. And in post processing of the image, they turned the man into the woman. Then with face masking, that's very realistic. The same way they can do it in real time now, they could do it for a long time. That's all. And so it doesn't mean that that's what was happening here, guys. It could be. It's possible in theory. I don't necessarily think so, though. I mean, honestly, I'm not even really honestly subtly suggesting it. It was just one of those things where I was kind of like, wow, do these guys even look a lot alike? But it's something that like, now that I have this awareness about how things work, I look deeper for it. I try to see if that's actually a thing that might have happened. That's all. I'm open to it, and I'm more than likely to going to look deeper into it to see, like, is the other person an actor or actress that just suddenly disappears and falls off the face of the map? Do they work in a consistent trajectory with the other person who I think plays them? Do they suddenly radically change in appearance in ways where they don't even look like the original person that much anymore? Because sometimes they just literally will hand it off to a person. They can go and do physical appearances but was originally CGI. And they just do that by adding half the new person and half the fake person that never existed, that was, a whole bunch of the old person. So say for example this was true, say for example that Tim Curry is this actress. Say that's how it's been working for years. I'm not saying that it is, guys. I'm honestly not. But if it did, what they would do is say there's a whole bunch of fans of hers and they just wanted to like make people like never knew this happened. They would just find somebody that looks enough like this. And then as she gets older in years, suddenly start to bring her out into public again because now this anchors her into physical reality. But I'm telling you guys, I've noticed this with a lot of these actors and actresses. They just really won't look that much. I mean, it's beyond just like they've changed some, or they might have drank too much, or just years kind of caught up to it. No, no, no. It'll be like you're like, no, you're not the same person. No, no, you're everything's different. No, don't tell me you had a little work done here and there. It's just too different. So they were doing this a lot. There's a lot of 80s B films, guys. Like they would do they would change ages a lot and genders simultaneously. There's some that I saw them actually how they do it. They had one where they made a boy actor who was like in his single digits. They made him look like an adult female for one movie, and another one that was like a girl about the same age. They made look about the like, made her look about twice her age in the movie, things like that. And then in the same film, they were taking adults and scaling them down to look like much younger characters. That's when it looks really goofy, just because they just have all the mannerisms of people that they just don't look and act like, you know what I'm saying? You can kind of tell. And so this was kind of happening in these movies back in like the 80s especially. There was just a lot of this face masking things that were being used. So again, not saying this is one of them in the classic sense, but I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence, to be honest with you, since I just ran across it. Anyways, sorry guys, did not mean to get deep into the whole face masking thing or whatever, but I think it's relevant since we're kind of getting into this whole thing with this whole Caitlyn Jenner, thing, and the transgender thing and the face masking thing, and what they're doing at a larger scale with this sort of gender flipping and changing of it all. Like what's its larger purpose? What's its reason? Is there a point to it? You know. Oh, you want an example of face masking? I'm trying to think of one that I really feel strongly about. A lot of modern movies, quite frankly. I mean, I think a telltale sign is you're gonna find like the ones that exist now, like back in the 80s and 70s, a little bit more difficult. But well, for example, Hogan's Heroes would have been one series that would have been implementing some of the face masking. Very subtle. It's not like something you would notice like in a lot. In fact, I want to get this image off. Sorry, I don't mean like keep that up there. Um, but yeah, some of it's pretty subtle, like because the point of it wasn't to do these radical changes like from one gender to another, or from one like radical age change to another. I think those evolutions, they came later on. It just be maybe out of necessity, or just out of them just seeing how far they could go with changing a person's physical appearance on camera. But yeah, always integrating this form of like making severe and radical changes to whatever the person actually is. It's that there's a time where I would have thought that this was like harmless, right? But what you just said, True Seeker, it makes sense to me now, because if you think about it, like if they use face masking, for example, to get like I okay, well, I don't really want to. I feel bad, guys, because what if I say too many times publicly, like all the different ones that I thought were boys were really girls, or were girls were really boys? Like, it's just one of those things I'd much rather have as a personal conversation amongst people. But and I do. I mean, the people that I know more one to one, I will share this with them. I will talk to them about it. But I try to be a little bit less whatever with this type of information, but mostly just because of that reason, guys. Um, what if it was just a person that just happened to have the same speech pattern and was like slightly effeminate? And I say, well, I thought they were an avatar and they're really a girl when they were a child actor when they were a boy, that kind of thing. So I don't really know in every case. So I'm trying to think of one that I think is pretty reliable and doesn't have anything that's too extreme. I think the series Weeds actually use this for some of the child actors there. I think that some of the ones that were like the main actors were using some face masking. I think that's one of the reasons why one of them just like kind of disappeared from Hollywood, and then they said went off to Israel to teach kids English in the desert of Israel. Really? I mean, that just strikes me as a strange trajectory. Like you're on this, you're this young actor, and right at the pinnacle of your career, right as basically they're legalizing weed and everything like that, and pretty much everybody's going to think of you as like the coolest guy ever anywhere because you're on this television series that was kind of a cultural icon for a lot of people for a while. I mean, it really was. A lot of people that were into the cannabis culture watched that series Weeds. And so it isn't just like didn't make any sense to me. This guy just suddenly like disappears. Like that's the storyline that we're all supposed to accept. The guy just like disappears out of nowhere when the series goes and goes like, guys, yeah, I know I have all these options in front of me, but I think I'm just going to like quit Hollywood, move to Israel, and teach everybody English here. I don't know. It seems strange to me. But again, there's Hollywood, right? There's the scripts, there's the shows that we have produced for us, right? And then I think that the thing that people have to really remember about Hollywood is there's two other Hollywoods. And there's the one that is the straightforward entertainment that we all get to consume. Behind that is there is a deception behind even the content creators that is every bit as much rooted in fiction and concealment, actually more so. I would say it's more deceptive than the straightforward storylines because everybody's told to believe it. Most people believe that whoever produced the movie really has that name and really grew up with the history that their Wikipedia thing says, or if it's an actor or actress, or rather a producer or director, that they really have the history they say they do. And quite often, it's just a made up fictional history. It's more of a group of people or a staff of people that did it, or even some of the actors themselves. And the director or the producer is more of a figurehead or a puppet character or a lightning rod to absorb, blame for the overall content. I mean, there's no other way to put it. You know, I've seen it too many times within the caricatures. Guys never asked yourself why, like a whole bunch of these Hollywood producers sound like they have quote pen names. Like even the names of the people themselves within Hollywood, even if you accept that some of them got name changes, like just like decided to make them up and say like, yeah, something, I don't want to be that name. I want to be named this instead. Okay, that happens, guys. I get it. But no, some of these people, if you look them up on Wikipedia, they'll act like that's a name they've had for generations. And so what tried to explain in my material is, yes, there's Hollywood that makes up stories, right? And it's straightforward entertainment. You can buy their television series or watch them for free on whatever, blah, blah, blah. But behind that is a whole nother ecosystem of deception that's designed just to trick all of us in everyday reality, including some of the people who make those movies, who don't even know who the producers are or some of the real writers are, who the real content creators truly are. A lot of times it's really unknown, and puppets are put in their place, and sometimes they do show up. Sometimes they adopt the names of the director. They have film after film after film attributed to that name. They show up to a podium. They tell everybody what a great pleasure it was to work with everybody, and I'm sure they showed up and worked with everybody. But in some cases, not everyone, but in some cases, in many, it really did not go down that way. And the same system of fakery is used to populate corporate infrastructure. So they have lightning rod characters who will absorb the blame if ever anything happens to a company that they're financially responsible for. It basically makes it to where they can send a paper fiction character to jail instead of a real person. A whole ecosystem just to like flush away the crimes of all kinds of people, white collar, blue collar, street level, desk level alike. I mean, I don't know, guys. I mean, like, I'm not like some goody two shoes or something like that. I don't care if some people are getting over on quota system. It doesn't make any difference to me. It's all left right now. I mean, really, if somebody's able to make a little living here and there, fine, good for you. But um, what we've gotten to the level to now is just that there really isn't any way we can even have a sustainable system on any level that's even functional, even to do the basics of like infrastructure and keeping the roads going, everything like that, without something resulting in something very serious within the United States soon, guys. I mean, that's the best thing I could tell you. We've got the CIA warning others, probably more than the United States itself, that they feel they're reporting. It's almost like they're trying to make one happen, but who knows? Sensing a civil war in the United States. Why the CIA is the person who's writing this report and not an FBI intelligence report, I'm not entirely sure. Unless they believe it involves foreign, operators doing it, which, I think it does actually. And here's the thing, like, I don't blame like China for that necessarily. Um, I think that it works kind of the same way that like the CIA would pay to maybe disrupt other countries in certain ways. Historically, they would go into certain places, hire mercenaries to disrupt and agitate things, and cause problems elsewhere because they can get away with things like that over there. Like if it's in a South American or Central American country, for example, or perhaps somewhere in rural Africa or something like that, places where they're able to get away with these things and don't have as much oversight and accountability. You have more corrupt leadership that they can just be bought off. Yeah, it's carrots and sticks, and they're in systems that have been broken down economically, so whoever comes in with the most payoff money can effectively control things once it's destabilized. Whoa, look how many times this lesson has been reinforced to them. They can swoop in and just start paying off everybody once everything's been effectively destabilized. This is where all of you benevolent billionaires really need to start stepping in and going like, do you know how you solve this? You create a Pokemon Go system of benevolent deeds, of things that are creation in nature, things that actually fuel and stimulate the economy type things. Reward people. Create if you just have money sitting there and you don't really know what to do with it, make the best thing you can do as a billionaire or a trillionaire is to get your money moving through the economy. Sitting there, it does nothing. Sitting there buried in stocks, sitting there buried inside your bank account accumulating interest, it's doing nothing, especially if you're billionaires. Seriously, like, I mean, really, if you really want to help, I'm tired of like giving you like a good tongue lashing and saying that you're fraudulent. Those of you who are, I mean, like, do you honestly want to do the right thing? Use your awesome computing skills. Create an application where you incentivize good things, incentivize people helping people, and it's actually surprisingly easy to do in a legitimate way if you really think about it. If you literally like right now, what like you have these gaming environments where people are just incentivized to go around doing things like what, like like, wow, well, you know what, if I eat this many Whoppers this week, man, I'm gonna be able to get I'm gonna get $5 in free Amazon gift cards, so I got to keep eating these Whoppers this week, man. Oh yeah, and they just developed an incentive for me. Like once I find all these free Whopper coupons at all these different places that I spend $30 in gas to find. I mean, it's things like that that they would incentivize to these bogus apps and games, things like that. People trying to get something for free or whatever. And you can find like ways to like game those same types of environments for just to create something to fix something, like how do you, if you want a functional road and you want it to happen, like how do you make it not only, I mean, create like, especially those who are like into the crypto markets, like, do you know how easy it would be to create something that's like, that has accountability caked in, because the payment doesn't get delivered until there's a verification of what's been done, and then it gets pushed through to the person, but each step triggers the next step, triggers the next step within the project. You can do things like that where there's like purchases, requisitions. As soon as somebody's work is achieved and accomplished and verified in a way they all agree to, they're immediately paid for their what they've done. Things like that you can integrate into just creating like ecosystems that are self-sustaining, and then will actually have perhaps a business model behind them, so that you're not required to be like a person that's giving away your benevolent billionaire money to. I'm just thinking, guys, in terms of like, I'm always reminded of these alleged benevolent billionaires like the Warren Buffetts, or the Bill Gateses, or the Elon Musks, the ones that like, allegedly put their money where their mouth is. And then a lot of times it's, well, in Warren Buffett's case, his money is, well, where Bill Gates's mouth is. That's Melinda. So, well, was Melinda. So I don't know, Warren. I think I would probably do something better with it, or maybe just shift it a little bit more of it to somewhere else. Maybe not like so much with the Gates Foundation. I'm not sure that's a good idea. But there you go. I mean, that's why people are so cynical, is all I'm trying to tell you, billionaires, right? Is because that's just the case. Like, if you look into it like we do, I don't think you look into it. If you're a billionaire, will you please look into the legitimacy of these philanthropic organizations that you put into? Because a lot of them do have these sort of puppet infrastructures, like fake people running them, or fake people that are intermediaries that you can't really talk to. And again, they'll always say this is for safety, or to keep somebody safe. Oh my God, you guys! Like, yeah, I mean, look, this has always been my challenge with my information. I get that argument. I understand it. It kept me effectively sitting on data that I had for a long time, because I was provided no real outlet that I could really talk to somebody privately. I tried, but again, once I tried doing the private thing, like, man, I think we need to get these records in and talk about like why this thing leads to this thing leads to this thing. And then, that's when the FBI kind of does the whole, you just don't get the kind of you don't get the kind of response that you're looking for. You're expecting them to, well, look, it depends on what you're expecting from the FBI. At the time, I was a little bit more naive. That was a few years ago. And I thought the things that I knew, and I still think the things that I know are relevant. I know that they are. I mean, everything I'm telling you about, um, how do I say this, guys? Like, there's a way for all the destabilization to go on in the United States, and it involves things that are technology hacks into firmwares of smartphones. It involves like things that can siphon off radio resources into private networks for select users. It provides, I like, independent like information routes for people to do money laundering and accept payments and push payments between each other. I mean, some of that's done with software, but some of it's being done through these backdoors in the phones that are pretty clever. And to prove it, again, this is where we're kind of getting into, we need to establish like working teams and get people together a little bit. And I do think that I'm a person that can actually, help facilitate something like that. And actually kind of make it, the finding the solutions to these problems pretty entertaining, to be honest with you. I mean, if we really want to go there, whether that's done through like a book series or a web series or an actual whatever. I mean, there's ways to make the actual investigations of these things involving airwave interface entertaining. And I also think that the reason why we would want to do that in this country is because it's a form of what, KRS-One, Boogie Down Productions would call edutainment. I was pretty influenced by guys like Public Enemy and KRS-One of Boogie Down Productions when I was younger. And I remember KRS-One, like, he was kind of known for coining this phrase. I don't know if he did, but he used it a lot, at least. and he said edutainment. It was education. Your education is integrated into your entertainment. So he made things that were both, that had a good lyrical flow to them, but at the end of it, you're enlightened. You're a little bit smarter for having listened to KRS-One. I still find to this day that it's bizarre to me, guys. I listened to him and thought he was somebody to look up to when I was, in high school and listening to that music. And I was really surprised after not listening to his music for years and years. Like it just, I just didn't, I just hadn't picked up his albums in a long time. And so when I started like paying more attention to some of these topics on the internet and hearing, people talk about KRS-One, I was like, wow, this guy really has some pretty deep things to say, like beyond what his music was doing. Like he's a great speaker, and he has some very, very like just incredibly interesting perceptions on, especially within Freemasonry, like a total different take on Freemasonry than you typically hear from the average person, a total different understanding of it. And I kind of share a similar feeling about it, I guess, as far as like, what I think of it, or what my opinion is of it in, relative to other things in like religions or mystic groups or whatever, like what I think it is. Um, and I do think it is a largely misunderstood group. And yeah, I mean, again, you can find the same way, guys, like any group that's large like that operates all across the world, you're going to find good and bad actions attributed to them. And more often than not, the negative ones are going to be highlighted and the good ones are going to be lesser known, especially with a group that keeps its actions oftentimes a secret. I just kind of learned that group in particular seems to know a lot about these strange timeline things that I discussed. So that's one of the reasons why I'm a little bit reluctant to sort of like cast like a broad, negative brush across any particular group, especially when it comes to them, because I do think there were some at a pretty high level that were pretty benevolent that knew things, but I'm also aware that there's probably quite a few lodges that are pretty toxic and not doing very good things in many pockets around the world. So that's obvious. And so all I ever ask people is remember that they are a convenient scapegoat. But yeah, like just like Robert Anton Wilson pointed out, he doesn't believe it's a conspiracy in and of itself, but he does acknowledge it is the perfect place. It is the perfect environment through which to conspire to do things. So, I mean, can we agree that there's a balance here on how to look at this? That's all. And again, full disclosure, I am not a Freemason. I don't identify as one or anything else like that. So, um and I'm not playing around with language or anything else like that, guys. I haven't joined a lodge, I haven't taken any rituals or done anything of that nature. Studied some of the things that they like, it crosses over into things they study, which is why I feel like I kind of understand them. That's all. I really feel like what they do is like they have a very, very deep, at the highest levels, a deep understanding of bioenergetics. And I think that the Masons, probably in a way that many good, or whether you like them or not, you still may find this part of them controversial if it's true. I think what they do is they believe in managing the plasma field. They're there to sort of like, at a high level, they see themselves as ones that can bend it a bit and manage the plasma field, and that would be our physical reality. Because less, I think, at its origins, it was less, I think, to dominate and to control and more to create a balance. And I think it's just because once you have access to that much knowledge and power and the ability to do everything I just talked about, yeah, the corruption has a tendency to begin to go with it. And then that has a tendency to expand. And so there's no doubt, guys. So again, I just try not to dismiss the actions of, I think, a lot of the benevolent ones that really did a lot of great things. That's all. So, yeah, thank you for joining there, True Seeker. Appreciate it. Happy New Year. Yeah, eventually I'm gonna have to get some sleep myself, but all right. All right, let's see. All right, so again, now that we got way, way, way far off topic on topic, sort of there. So that's the sort of the slide for the IMDb entry of the Village People. So you can see that Nancy Walker directed it again, the lady from the Bounty commercials.
The lady talks kind of like this.
I can't imagine what this set was like, her as the director. But anyways, if that's true, that's damn, that's far out. And so that's one of the poster. Yeah, guys, it's wow. They do a whole campaign for milk. I don't know what to tell you. Like it's like there's one of the scenes involves them doing like trying to start the careers of the Village People by getting them involved with an ad campaign for milk. And so I just put, let's take a look at the things that make it meme politically relevant today. Trump uses Village People songs at the rallies. Caitlyn Bruce Jenner plays Ron White, and he ran for governor of California. An odd synchronicity, I think, or perhaps a sign of something else. And this is why I'm like wondering, guys. I mean, seriously, White, Ron White, I mean, Donald Trump wound up in the White House. He went up to president. And I thought it was kind of an interesting thing when you think about it. Like, whether people accept this or not, I think this is true, actually. I think Trump really is a pretty moderate Republican, as much as he became more of a bull Republican. So when I say moderate, I just mean to say that I think he's more of a moderate when it comes to sane Democrats, not establishment Democrats that just believe anything, blah, blah, blah. No, I think he was the one that honestly, and a lot of people on the left want to deny this, whether whatever, and they kept quiet. But a lot of them saw him as a much better alternative to Hillary Clinton during that election. So, um, yeah, dude, don't like, dude. Oh, there's so much going on in that movie. And again, like it's one of those ones where like it requires analysis, but like you'd probably be embarrassed if somebody walked in the room, like if they didn't like unless of course that's your lifestyle, you would be like, what? No, 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 no. Like Seinfeld. It's not there's anything wrong with that. I just but it was such a bizarre, like, I mean, it's PG, guys. I mean, it's just a musical, but obviously, if it's the Village People, they're just going to be more comfortable with the gay themes, right? And again, again, I'm fine with people being who they are and everything like that, but just being a pretty straight person, it's my natural reaction to kind of go like, all right, again, nothing like I'm not angry about it or anything else like that. It's just like, okay, all right. um, yeah. So if that makes me homophobic, I'm sorry, guys. I'm not trying to be or anything like that. I don't think it does. It's just an honest way of discussing it. But see, it's like, Donald Trump dancing to Macho Man by the Village People. So if you're unfamiliar, guys, like he really did like use a lot of the Village People songs, in addition to Gloria by Laura Branigan, which I thought was pretty interesting. So again, I would think that almost anything he played in repetition at his rallies is relevant for probably a lot of reasons. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and this is where it got like really trippy, man, because there was like Bruce I'm sorry, Caitlyn Jenner, like I don't know, guys, man. Like it was the '70s, man. So there's just like the fashion at the time. I guess we'll just call it that. It was the fashion of the time. But then the contrast between when you went go back between like Bruce Jenner, then Caitlyn Jenner running for California governor to restore hope. Caitlyn Jenner on California governor run and stance on immigration and state. This all had that, like I really felt like we're living in some kind of mirror. reality like construct where there's something that's not just happening through sort of happenstance. It's not just through sort of like, huh? It's not just because it's just a pure synchronicity. Yeah, some of it's happening that way, but other parts feel like, yeah, there was a lot of timeline knowledge. There was a lot of people that had a pretty good idea that something was going to happen. And it's like we were getting prepared for it, or we were getting warmed up for it, or they were doing things in anticipation of it. I guess the reason why I'm not prepared to say like it's always bad is because I think there's gone two things with this fakery in America. And I've always been trying to like explain to people that look, I don't like anything to be fake, okay? But I understand why some things do get faked. I tried to explain this a couple years ago. Um, now, look, I don't know if this was fake or not, guys, but since I've already gone on record as talking about this, let's just assume that maybe it was. There was this whole thing where like a lot of this race baiting thing was going back and forth like the last couple years and like the last few years. Just tons and tons of this like cancel culture. So and so once said this to me, therefore we need to cancel them and cancel their show. And they're all awful people because I'm sure they said this bad thing in this racial way or in this gender way. Whatever it is, guys, just very aggressively the last few years attempts to just like cancel some really, really good people, you know? And it's getting late. I apologize because like I'm starting to lose like why I was talking about this whole thing with the cancel culture and everything else like that. Like over isms and saying words and everything else like that, you know? Crap. I totally lost my flow on this. Oh, okay, here we go. Now I remember. All right. All right. So this happened like a couple years ago where there was a story involving the comedian. Here, I'll just put it on the screen, okay? Let me find it really quick. All right. So I don't know, those of you who are fans of David Cross or not. I personally, guys, I think David Cross is freaking hilarious. Okay, I think he's actually probably look. I don't think that Bob Odenkirk and David Cross have been recognized nearly enough for the genius that they've brought, like modern comedy. I don't think that modern comedy, any comedy, would look like the way that it does today without Mr. Show with Bob and David that starred David Cross and Bob Odenkirk. It was pure freaking genius. They did a reboot of it on Netflix called Bob and David's Show or something. I can't remember what it is, but the original that was on HBO, if you can ever get the first four seasons, they're pretty cheap. I think you can just buy them on iTunes for maybe like $3 or $4 a season. Every episode of that is pure freaking genius. Okay. But what I always liked about it was they really got the absurdity of everything. Like they really saw all the different layers of absurdity in everybody's beliefs. And it was almost like they seemed to be the people like going, really, guys, can we find some like seriously? Like, is everybody it's that you're looking on like, can we even save these people? I don't know. It's hard for me to talk or articulate what I think is behind their humor. I'm not them, but the point is that they seem to be pretty sharp guys. I would never consider any of them to be racist or to have any sort of whatever. And I wouldn't consider them to be overly, quote, liberal. And I wouldn't consider them to be overly whatever, like in either direction. They just don't like. I think that they wouldn't want to see anybody like abused or harmed in any racist way or sexist way in a real sincere way. So when I heard this story about this comedian Charlene Yee saying that she had this sort of racist encounter with David Cross, my first impression was like, seriously? I don't and then as I dug deeper into it a little bit, I'm kind of going, no, Charlene Yee's worked with some really politically incorrect comedians. She did well, let's take a look. She was in that movie Knocked Up, and she plays, I think, Martin Starr's girlfriend in that one. That was kind of an early role for her. And that movie is just filled with politically incorrect humor, as is all the work of those guys at that time. These are guys that, like, now some of their work would get quote that would if it was put under very very close review, they would be either required to rigorously apologize for every word they've ever said in ways that are just bizarre and not even necessarily like in tune with reality, or they would like perhaps see their careers quote canceled in ways that are just like bizarre, artificial, and don't make any sense. And and so when I saw this article involving it, I guess I could read it, but it says earlier this week, Charlene Yee recounted her first interaction with David Cross, a more established comedian who is 20 years her senior, which took an offensive turn. I think about the first time I met David Cross 10 years ago, and he made fun of my pants. They were tattered because I was poor. The house actress wrote on Twitter. Dumbfounded, I stared at him and speechless, and he said to me, "What's the matter? You don't speak English." Ching chong, ching chong, she continued. Then after that, he saw that I was offended. He asked me if I was going to fight with him, karate in a southern accent. He went on to point out that at the time of this alleged incident, she was 20 years old. She added, I sure as hell hope he's changed, or at the very least, he's scared enough to not be his racist self. Now, what's bizarre about this, guys, is like, if you've ever heard David Cross's comedy, he makes really kind of brilliant commentary on racism and ignorance and growing up in a culture. He grew up in rural Georgia, and he was a Jewish kid, with it was like short and skinny with really curly kinky hair, being raised around a lot of Southern boys named Zeke that knew how to chew and spit big wads of chew and everything. And he was like talking like, "Hey, here I am, my little Davy Cross." So if you ever heard his comedy, like you would know that he's a guy that's really, he usually comments on that type of like, that is a caricature of somebody ignorant that he makes fun of. Like everything you just heard in that would be his racist character. And so like when I heard this story, I'm going like, yeah, I've seen him do this. Like it is comedy. Like I've seen this, he's done it. He has this Ronnie Dobbs character who's like the rich guy that beats his wife and gets drunk all the time. He's got these characters, okay? And yeah, it's just bizarre that they went to this extreme, and I was kind of like going, but then as I kind of zoomed out from it, I'm kind of going, no, these people are all smarter than this. I think I know what this might be. And again, I'm not going to say that they're Masons, and I'm not going to even imply that they're both Freemasons or whatever, but this would be here's would be my olive branch to like how a benevolent group of people that are secretly Mason or do things that are more in tune with what secret Masons do, they would fake something just like this, because the point of it would be for everybody to have a aha after the deception, which again is not really known to anybody who knows any different. Again, I'm not saying that's what this is, okay, but that's how they would go about doing it. They would stage something like this so that when everybody dug deeper into it, and the hope is that you would just read one or two more paragraphs and get to the end, or learn more about it, or just dig, or they will hash it out in a public way where once they've reached the resolution, you will see how the misunderstanding happened between them in a way that, yeah, perhaps staged, but it was designed to give people a greater sense of enlightenment so that you don't go around canceling people. That would be one form of a benevolent, staged, more Masonic type Luciferian light bearer deception, okay, that I'm sympathetic to, and I don't believe is entirely wrong given the situation that we're in. It's like Robert Anton Wilson said. He goes, "It's too late for art. You need magic." That's kind of what they're doing. That's what that is in a way. It's a kind of a form of like mass resonance manipulation, but it's done to sort of like get people shocked with the racism. But then when you dig deeper, you're like, oh, not. Oh, well, hey, they worked it out. I guess we shouldn't all take all these words so seriously. Oh, I guess we shouldn't all, and then everybody works it out. They have a deeper understanding and then they all move on from it. And then everybody who dug deeper into it gained that little bit of learning. And that's the hope. Yeah, yeah, exactly. See, if you understand his comedy, you understand that that would have been completely ironic. Like me, I've done the same type of thing, you guys. I promise you. Everything he just said there, I have said those types of things because I'm pretending to be somebody who's ignorant and racist, okay? And I have an Asian sister, and her offspring is clearly Asian. And so, I wouldn't do something equally to be offensive to somebody from that culture. I would never go out of my way, obviously. If anything, I'm going to be like conscientious to say like, hey, before I say this, I want you to know I'm not trying to be whatever. But yeah, there's just sort of ways I think that they will do things sometimes in a public way that seems like whatever. I'm kind of holding out hopes that some of the other comedians that are close to some of these things are also trying to do these staged events to cancel the cancel culture. That's my hope. Because they are actors and they kind of know the effect of like just staging something to make whatever. And I think some of them have their origins in quote staging events. So maybe they'll use their powers for good. Again, I don't like any deceptions, but I kind of, if that's what happened in that case, and then everybody learned something from it, was there really any harm? I don't know. I mean, probably not. So again, it's sort of maybe on the level of, lying to your kid that about Santa having being the one who brought presents under the Christmas tree because you want them to be good. It's just a more sophisticated form of behavioral correction when there's these wizards at work at manipulating all of our perceptions into making everybody cry racist at every skip and beat, right? And if these two people had an understanding that that's what they were trying to solve, it's like, do you want this? No, I don't want everybody. I just want us all to get along. I'm tired of everybody focusing on race. I'm tired of everybody focusing on gender. I'm tired of everybody focusing on money. I'm tired of everybody focusing on, yeah, then maybe they stage some events, I guess. But see, here's the problem, guys. There's that. And I've always been sympathetic to that form of whatever. Like, Andy Kaufman, that's kind of an Andy Kaufman like staging of events. He's literally making his entire existence staged. Everything that Andy Kaufman did effectively was a huge act. The guy never turned a switch off almost for anybody. Hardly anybody knew who the guy really was. He was so into the quote, the act. I mean, you can learn a lot. That was my first like delving into the world of the mind of these crisis actors and how they transition between reality into fiction. If you understand Andy Kaufman, you'll understand the Love family cult inside and out. If you can gain access to what made that man tick, you'll understand that the Love family cult and their offspring, quite a few of them, are a whole bunch of little confused Andy Kaufmans running around out there, not entirely sure which one of their personas is the real them because they've played one for so long, they begin to believe they are that person. And how would they know the difference between the character and the person they've been, quote, pretending to be if they've been pretending to be that person for like over a decade? That's the world they exist in. Seriously, quite a few of them. Yeah. And so, yeah, white boy, you know what I'm talking about. Like, if you've ever heard David Cross, like, his shtick is going like, and again, oh my God, Wonder Chosen. There's like a whole episode of season 2 that's like a fake hee haw episode, and David Cross is in it. It's a classic example of this exact thing. If you don't believe what I'm telling you, then watch that episode. And if you think that's straightforward racism, I can't help you. If you watch that episode and your takeaway is that they're trying to be sexist and racist or whatever, is like, yeah, whatever. Hang on really quick. Sorry, I had to cool off a little bit there. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I've always, look, in a case like that though, that always struck me as being something that was probably kind of staged. Okay, I know that was a couple years ago. That's not quite a year in review thing. It's a piss poor New Year's special, but what do you want me to do, right? I actually had intended to get to sign off a little while ago, but I'll keep going for a little bit longer, I guess. I totally forgot to do a countdown when we turned over to the new year again. I'm sorry, guys. All of you, happy new year. Sorry about not saying it on this last round. I think I missed it. I did it the other one. Oh well. I was too busy babbling. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was too. So, yeah, I guess what I'm trying to wonder here, guys, getting back to the material that I started with, is Can't Stop the Music and some of these other works from the 70s and 80s, as bizarre and weird as they are, was part of their function. I'm wondering out loud. Were they just timeline clues? Is there absurdity? Is the absurdity of is it a part of like the combination of having Bruce Jenner of all people, the one cast side by side with the Village People, and then in the future Trump making a point to play the Village People. Maybe they did have a larger reason. Maybe they were trying to get us someplace. Maybe there's all these different people that are just more of a subtle form of their energy, or they don't want everything to be so extreme, and for people to take absurdist arguments, they just want to be genuinely understood. And maybe the moderate position isn't like you kowtow and just like, say like, well, I'm going to believe what you believe a little bit more. No, stay firm in your beliefs. But when you're making the compromises, you're just listening more to what the other person's saying. You're like, going, wow. I mean, am I really taking into full? Honestly, if I listen, I can usually find a balance between, my perspective and somebody else's, right? And so that's why I was kind of putting here, guys, just to cap and put a capsule on this whole whatever you want to say, this Village People thing. Did anyone ever ask why Trump would select Village People songs for all of his rallies? I mean, yeah, he plays Laura Branigan's Gloria, but you know, um, but Village People songs like Macho Man and YMCA are the clear favorites. Consider what this represents when you zoom out from the data and how it correlates to now. And so I kind of did this whiteboard, about some of the connections and everything like that. And if you think about it, Trump kind of like represents like the East Coast, right? New York, East Coast. And then you got this whole San Francisco connection to Bruce, Caitlyn Jenner, or Caitlyn Bruce Jenner. I guess I should just say Caitlyn Jenner now. I mean, out of respect, but then known as Bruce Jenner. And like, how would they even know that this would be something that would happen in the future, guys? Like, when you throw these combinations of things together and these synchronicities together, I think sometimes things just synchronize and that just happens and it is coincidence. And other times I feel like they were kind of hinting at something in the absurdity. It's almost like the movie Idiocracy, like when they have President Camacho as a wrestler slash porn star slash whatever it was, right? As the American president, and he kind of talks frankly and says, like blows, drinks beers and fires off his shotgun everywhere and things like that in front of everybody. I mean, in the film it seems absurdist, but when you really get down to it, we've almost got there, guys. I mean, Idiocracy wasn't even released that long ago. That was like early 2000s. And that movie almost appears to be like a warning about a future reality. Like we sat there laughing at Idiocracy, like, but again, in a way that was almost like Homer Simpson. It's funny because it's true. It was like that, you know? So, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, white boy, you might be interested to know this. Actually, I was saying this to my girlfriend the other day that Richard Pryor, um, his early material was co-written with Paul Mooney, and who recently passed on. And if you're not familiar, I'm sure you are. But Paul Mooney was also contributing. I don't know if he did writing, but he definitely contributing as an actor, sometimes writer to the Chappelle Show, Dave Chappelle's comedy show. So yeah, yeah. So you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, you seem to have a good informed sense of humor. Like some of the more obscure, like humor things and everything like that. So you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So like anybody who's watched David Cross's humor knows that he'll say things that are almost like shockingly racist in a way that's ironic to point out the absurdity of racist beliefs, to point out the absurdity of like you just have to be a little bit. You just have to have I don't know a couple more brain cells to get it. That's all. I think honestly, I think if your takeaway from David Cross is that he's a racist, I don't think you're being genuine or whatever. That's all. And so that's why because I noticed that Charlene Yee did work with some pretty talented comics that were not politically correct. I just felt like, I think she probably it seemed almost like it was a constructed narrative to where she could they could resolve it publicly and then everybody would learn something from the fake deception. I don't know. I'm hoping that's what it was. If whether it was or wasn't. So happy New Year, Anastasia. Thank you for joining. Appreciate you being here. Yeah. But you see though, you see what was cool about it though? If you ask me, that part of what he did, like if David Cross and Charlene Yee actually did that and they just like made it all up between the two of them, the great part about it was is like the people that would normally like jump on board and get offended, it's kind of a way to like create an additional discussion around it to where you can go like, well, hey, they actually talked about that and here's what they learned. And then when you're at the water cooler and people are going to say so and so is a racist or whatever, I don't know. To me, like if those things can still be valuable, I'm not entirely whether it was real or fake or whatever, I'm glad it got resolved in the end that they figured it out and that they both learned that David Cross ain't a racist and yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just judging or I'm what do you want to call it? Maybe I'm biased because his name is Cross and Cruz means the same thing in Spanish. I don't know. I'm not being cheeky there or anything like that. I actually organically really just became a David Cross fan pretty much I think through watching the Mr. Show with Bob and David. I think that's how I learned about him, but yeah. Yeah, I'll stay on it. I'll stay on till like, like another 20 minutes or so, and I'll kind of wrap all this whole thing up here with the whole, can't stop the music thing, but I think it's really weird here, guys. We've got this whole East Coast, West Coast thing. Donald Trump basically having New York, Caitlyn Jenner having California, New York being the East, California, the San Francisco area being the West. Now, the movie Can't Stop the Music takes place in those two cities. It's literally that's its two locations, New York and San Francisco. You've got Donald Trump that starts using in modern times all of these village people songs. And then you've got Caitlyn Bruce Jenner, who literally starred in the movie back in 1980 when it was originally released. And the thing about these weird disco projects, things like this movie, like you know, Yeah, white boy, I think that might be some of it. I think they were kind of warming us up for the reality. I think they were creating the synchronicity loops that were meant to synchronize to this timeline to where we would all kind of go like, "Whoa." Yeah. Yeah, like the Remo Williams thing, Rome, Remo. Yep. I'm telling you, man, there's actually I found a whole new thing that had Rome in it recently. I can't remember what that I'll have to look that up again. But yeah, so I part of it I think is if you watch the movie, maybe I you know what? It just occurred to me. It might be that this was designed a little bit as a bridge of belief systems between maybe where Donald Trump brought the country and where Caitlyn Jenner is. I mean, maybe these two bizarre moderates in their own strange way because he was kind of relevant in 1980. He wasn't really like I'd say like hugely known, but I believe Donald Trump was kind of known in 1980. I know early 80s he was kind of a thing. I don't know how popular Donald Trump was in 1980 because I was only what 5 or 6 years old, so 6 years old. um yeah, so I feel like what was going on here was that you had Donald Trump who was kind of like trying to get people to be perhaps like, he's from this sort of like more rich and elite group of people. Maybe there was just sort of like striking a balance to where things didn't go super dark and evil over to that other side, that there's people that if you had more Republican values and conservative values that would take this sort of like patriotic, xenophobic perspective of America to the most uber levels of, starting wars with everybody, being very isolationist, and all kinds of other things that would not be very good for our country. And again, they would consider these things conservative positions, but they would ultimately have a negative effect on America. And then what we're seeing is policies with like guys like Joe Biden is the extremes of liberal policies that have a completely dismantling, destabilizing effect on this country. Out and again, they're going to blame COVID, which is again mostly created by themselves, so they have a scapegoat. I mean, a built-in scapegoat in something that is sort of like an inflated issue that they themselves can just always come back to and go like, well, nothing's getting done because of this, or it's all screwed up because of this. It's like, no, it's all screwed up because you're making it this way. Somebody wants it this way. And I do think that within timelines, within these projects, we were oftentimes by some people getting clues. I've said that many, many times. And so I think it's realistic to expect that perhaps Can't Stop the Music might have just been this sort of handshake between people like Trump and the guys that are like, well, the gals, Caitlyn, the gals, that are like Caitlyn Jenner. That perhaps in 1980, Caitlyn was dealing with some genuine identity issues. And guys, you know what? I might have argued that, like, well, was Bruce Jenner really feeling like Caitlyn Jenner in 1980? Well, if you watch this movie, it's hard to argue. You see, like to a person like me that might be more cynical, then I can kind of go like, wow, I guess this is something that Caitlyn Jenner did actually struggle with. I can't say that all, because a lot of people take a position of whatever. And so maybe this was just these groups finding a happy balance between like, look, please don't judge us all because of these morons like Antifa, because that's not what we are. Maybe that's what the Jenner type aspect of this whole transgender LGBT aspect is. It's just like looking for a saner positions within their communities to where they're not always adopting the positions of people that really don't care about them at a core level. Um, it's really about exploiting the ones that are more sincere and just being like live and let live and in whatever, and always attaching themselves and as a protection racket to people that are more destructive in nature. And that's not has nothing to do necessarily with those issues. It's just again, they're all willing to support groups like Antifa that have lots of people that are just guys, they're offenders, man. They're sex offenders. There's no other way to put it. A lot of the people that are in those groups. So they're going to say that they're the ones that represent these LGBTQ issues. And again, to a person that's conservative, well, of course, you're going to be especially offended at that. Like you're like, oh yeah, I hate all this. You're not going to have any bit of understanding. Maybe Caitlyn Jenner actually has been going through something for like 20, 30 years. And hey, that making that movie back in 1980 was a sign. It was like a way to anchor it to be like, yeah, okay, so that when you see me do something really weird in 2021, you'll know that it didn't come out of left field. Maybe that's all Caitlyn was trying to do as Bruce, right? Back then. I don't know. I don't want to speculate excessively. If it was a timeline project, they wouldn't say anyways until the time is right. Yeah. Yeah, so I think there is something that's going on between whatever's happening relative to how Trump might understand it, relative to how, you know, Caitlyn Jenner might understand it, what might be really going on. I'm not going to excessively expand on that part, but I think there was some foreknowledge. I think it's pretty obvious. I think when you start to look deeper into it, it's done in an encoded fashion, guys, but you always have to ask yourself, why were these scripts written the way they were? Why did they have the plot lines included the way they did? I mean, they're pretty basic movies, but movies like this, again, thank God it's Friday. All that movie is about a whole bunch of people that go to the disco on Friday. That's all. That's all it is. Thank God it's Friday. Has Donna Summer singing Last Dance over and over again. That's all the movie is. Yet every time I watch it, it synchronizes to something in modern times in ways that makes me go like, what is this movie really? Because I've watched it more than once, and for some strange reason, I'll go from one state to another state, and I'll watch it at a different time in a different state, and I swear to you, it'll synchronize with something in each location in really weird ways. And so I do think sometimes these movies, that's why the plots are so disjointed, the scripts are so disjointed, because they were literally designed for timeline loops. They were literally designed to synchronize with another series of timelines. And so what better way to conceal that except within a movie that nobody's going to care about? It's, Cannonball Run. Thank God it's Friday. A movie about a cross country car race. You can hide all kinds of coded language and other things within that, or timeline clues within that, because nobody's really there to like see a straightforward plot. It's just all about jokes that are, one-liners and things like that, the perfect place to hide these types of things. And you'll find it, I'm telling you guys, whether it's the Cannonball Run series or some of these silly comedies that had guys like, the Chevy Chases and the Bill Murrays. Um, yeah. Yeah, man. You know what? It's funny you say that, white boy. Like, like we were talking, guys, those who aren't unfamiliar in the chat, we're talking about that. White boy says it's sadder that he doesn't know what's sadder, that comedy is either too highbrow for people or that they're that sensitive. Um, no, it's like, you know what? That's, to me, I feel like that's why like things like Mr. Show need to like be propped up. Like more of us need to like say like, yeah, I want more of that kind of humor. I just want more. Look, people that are willing, how do I say it? Just people that are willing to push the envelope a little bit. I mean, being offensive, I guess, has its purpose. I think if it's the thing that says boo and gets the person's attention, but then they become a little bit enlightened, like I was talking about, that's a good thing. That's what I see Mr. Show doing. It's that perfect form of offensive. Paul Mooney, same thing. Dave Chappelle, he went from being sophomoric to being genius a little too frequently, I think. For sometimes back in the day. I think now he's more probably leaning more towards genius than sophomoric. I mean, the show was a little bit sophomoric. That was all. I mean, sometimes the humor wasn't quite for me, but when it was more of like the commenting on things that are more race related, I thought it was pretty genius, And I thought the Paul Mooney material, especially, but But yeah, Paul Mooney was an early writer for Richard Pryor, and so anybody who's like really looking for some really like, I'm telling you, if you want some very edgy like race related humor, like Paul Mooney actually has a whole album called Race, and it's literally like people are walking out of his show like offended, and you hear him going like, "Bye, ma'am," you're so sensitive, like. Yeah, it's pretty whatever, but it was genius, and it has its place. And it's people have become too sensitive, And again, I think I love Paul Mooney because again, he could get on. I heard him like go really off on like Howard Stern, and then like within like a month later, there he is on Howard Stern. He's like, well, Howard, I played to my audience, He goes, I really thought you genuinely hated me. They just were going back and forth. I'm not really a Howard fan at this point. I think when I was younger, I thought the guy was pretty funny, but I think now it's not something I take a lot of. I don't know. I just don't find it that funny now. Um, but when I was younger, yeah. Now I just want the humor. I think just to be just a little bit more clever. I want him to try a little bit harder for the laugh. That's all. I just don't want it to be that sophomoric or just too bodily fluid obsessed type jokes or sophomoric or things like that or flatulence or whatever type joke humor. I mean, it has its place. It can be funny and things like that, but I mean, no, some of it's just too much like that. Um, all right. Oh yeah. So I put this part in here. The irony of this scene. Wow, did they know something or even plan it in advance? Bruce Jenner, an uptight lawyer who can't accept a pretty gal like Valerie Perrine, Samantha, hanging out with village people. Keep in mind the film involves New York City and San Francisco, East Coast, West Coast themes. Oh, you can't even hear it. Yeah, so I mean, effectively, if you think about it, I mean, that's like Bruce Jenner basically going like, you're hanging out with gay people and transgenders and things like that. I'm not putting up with this. I draw the line here. Like, where do you draw the line? At what point is enough enough? He's like getting all offended and he stomps out of her apartment. Guys, I mean, like, where would it like the select like all the people that could have been in a movie about the village people, and it happens to be this group, and then Steve Gutenberg. Yeah, sorry, the volume's really low. I don't think I can do anything about that. That was as loud as I could make it. Sorry. I recorded it low to begin with, and so I can't make it pump out any better on my speakers. But if you go to the if you actually go to the Twitter post, it'll be there. Here, I'll get you a link. Those of you who want to just like listen to it, they're on the Twitter post. There's the link. I put it in the chat. But yeah, that's basically, Valerie Perrine basically getting upset with Caitlyn Bruce Jenner because, he's all upset because she wants to hang out with gay people. So then you just have this whole thing, where it was sort of like, what Caitlyn Jenner represents to California being the West Coast being the blue state, the whole thing with, if you think about it though, it's like, it guys, there's something that's kind of bizarre going about like the reality of the people when you go to those places, because for as liberal as they allege to be, like Californians are actually just very socially liberal. It's like they really do kind of want everything sort of like taken care of for them, but they just have this aggressive spirit of like, well, yeah, but F the government and everything else like that, and don't tell me what to do, but please provide for me constantly. That's California. So there needs to be this sort of balancing of these perspectives for the state to really be functioning and be a useful part of our union as a country. If California, Texas, and these larger states like that get too destabilized, Texas, California, Florida, if they get too destabilized, they go too much in one direction. The type of things that can go on in our country, I mean, that's why you're going to see these like aggressive attempts to like take over their politics or whatever, and then whatever other states to continue hijacking them. But these are within Hollywood. I know, as bizarre as this sounds, but I mean, if you watch my material and if you're here tonight especially, you probably expect it. But yeah, timeline things, guys. I mean, some really strange, bizarre timeline things, especially when these low budget movies. This one was produced by the same people that did Grease. Those unfamiliar, Grease starred, John Travolta, Olivia Newton-John. This movie was actually, Valerie Perrine's role was supposed to be starring Olivia Newton-John, who played Sandy in Grease. But she wound up being in another musical that was equally bad, if not worse, called Xanadu, which, wow, boy, you want to talk about some timeline saving things. And maybe, I guess I have to watch it now just for the sake of whatever. But my mother wanted to take me and my siblings to take Xanadu in the theater. And I aggressively protested this, and I stayed away from that event and wound up staying back in the neighborhood. And they all went to the movie, and there was always like, "You missed out on the movie," and I'm like, "Oh, it's a little bit like Office Space." I wouldn't say I missed it. So to this day, I've never watched Xanadu, but I guess I'm going to have to soon, just so I know how truly bad it is. Yeah. Yeah. So I think what this is, honestly, guys, I think it was a balancing of energies. I hope it is. I mean, I hope it's not some deception thing. I think it was a timeline clue about, like, it was like Caitlyn trying to reach the same parts of his community. I think it was Trump trying to find people that are, again, in that subtle energies of, again, saying like, it's okay to step away from your typically progressive and Democrat, or your typically conservative and rigidly libertarian perspectives. We need something that's a little bit more into subtle energies right now to get us through all this. We need people to be less polarized. We have to find more things that we can really sit down and agree on. And they're aggressively trying to find these isms to poke away at and chip away at and get us to be all upset at each other over. So I put myself out here like this for a reason. Like, if I offend somebody, then talk to me, because what you're going to find in a person like me is I'm just human. If I said something here that offended you, I can promise you that none of the groups that I talked about tonight was it designed to do any of that about. I don't. I'm sorry. I don't. But yeah. But I'm about to get off, so I apologize. You know. Um. So soup. I just accidentally did something here. Didn't mean to do that. Oh well. Sorry. Oh. Okay. I was trying to actually do something else entirely, but um. Hang on, really quick here. No, I don't have time to do it, actually. I was gonna show you another slide, but yeah, I gotta close this one up. Yeah, I do. Tonight I gotta close this one up, guys, because it's just like I do gotta get going in the morning and things like that. So But thank you for joining everything like that. I do appreciate it. Anybody who wants to contribute and everything, or whatever, the all the information's in the description below. Chat window, those watching in the future, the chat window has links to all the Twitter posts and everything else like that. Inside the chat thing is inside, or in the description is my Twitter page. So if you're looking for the materials tonight, you can find it all there too. I do appreciate everybody joining. Happy New Year, and I hope you have a very good one. All right. Enjoy your 2022.